Swiss unemployment numbers came out today, and they were as expected, staying at 2.1%. Tomorrow, the Reserve Bank of Australia's governor, Philip Lowe, is set to speak, so make sure to follow up on what he has to say about the Australian dollar. After last week's busy news week, this week is off to a slower start, but coming on Thursday, US CPI numbers will be released, currently forecasted at 0.6% month over month and 8% year over year. Make sure to stay tuned in as we move throughout the week because we have more important news events ahead. Now let's take a look at some EdgeFinder pairs. Alright, so here we are inside of the EdgeFinder, starting off like we normally do by taking a look at the score chart summary. Since this news week is a little bit slow to start with, I figured that we could just take a look at our top buy and top sell here in the EdgeFinder starting off the week.
It's Black Friday! This month only, get 40% off our EdgeFinder tool. With the EdgeFinder, you'll access the Smart Money Tracker, our price forecast, and a lot of other really cool features. Click the link in our description for 40% off with code A1YT.
Now, our top buy is technically the US dollar against the Turkish lira. However, I don't think many traders trade the Turkish lira, so I think that we're going to look at a more popular pair, probably NZD CHF. Let's see so GBP NZD is actually our strongest sell, tied with AUD NZD, Euro NZD not far behind. So let's see, NZD CHF, NZD JPY, interesting. So we have NZD pairs as our biggest sells and our biggest buys. So that's interesting. So I guess we could go ahead and take a look at NZD CHF and GBP NZD as well. New Zealand pairs are apparently very popular at the moment. So let's take a look. So NZD CHF, you can find that over here. And clicking on that brings us to the NZD CHF page, where of course we have a buy bias score of +5. Both our COT data and our retail sentiment have scores of +1, and we can take a look at those numbers right over here in our sentiment section. New Zealand dollar coming in at 45.83% long and 54.17% short, while the Swiss franc sits at 23.61% long and 76.39% short. So smart money traders, institutional traders, are both favored short for the New Zealand dollar and the Swiss franc. However, they're really heavily favored short on the Swiss franc, not so much on the New Zealand dollar. Retail traders are agreeing with COT. Long 30%, short 70%. So retail traders are overall 70% short on the pair as a whole. Our seasonality shows a score of +1. And wow, just look at that jump from October to November. But historically speaking, looking at November to December, I see downward trend both in our all-time average and our last 5-year average moving into the last month of the year. Our trend reading is a +2, and trend reading simply means how has this market been trending. A score of +1 means that yes, it is in an upward trend, but of course markets are volatile and things could change. But a score of +2 means that this market is trending upward strongly. And if we took a look at the day chart really quickly, taking a look at the numbers all the way back at October 19th, we can see that this market has definitely been trending upwards pretty strongly. GDP growth +1, inflation -1, unemployment -1, and interest rates +1. We can take a look at our fundamental numbers right over here. New Zealand dollar sits at 1.7% and the Swiss franc sits at 0.3%. Inflation in New Zealand 7.2% compared to Swiss franc 3%. Unemployment, New Zealand 3.3% compared to Swiss unemployment 1.9%. And lastly, interest rates 3.5% for New Zealand and only 0.5% for the Swiss franc. So that was a quick look at our New Zealand Swiss franc breakdown page. Remember, we are having our biggest sale of the year, our Black Friday sale, the whole month of November. You can get the EdgeFinder as well as anything else in our store for 40% off. Our biggest sale of the year, 40% off with code A1YT. There has never been a better time to get the EdgeFinder or any of our other products for yourself. We have Nick's new trend following strategy, as well as some other educational tools. We have other software that we sell as well, but the EdgeFinder is definitely the best seller when it comes to helping you with your trading. It pulls in all of this data into one place and just makes trading easier in the long run when you have all of this data right in front of you. So again, code A1YT for 40% off the EdgeFinder. Go check it out in the links in the description. All right, moving right along, I believe GBP NZD was our biggest sell with a score of -9. That is a huge sell. Huge sell. Strong sell bias, of course. Score of -9, -9. COT data and retail sentiment, both scores of -1. I mean, everything is negative. Everything's in the red right here. So we can look at our sentiment numbers right here. Of course, we did just mention NZD, so I'll just mention GBP numbers. So 30.47% long and 69.53% short for the pound. Retail sentiment, retail traders are actually long overall, 63% long, 37% short. Seasonality score comes out to -1 as well. And October to November, a sharp downward trend. And looking at the all-time average and last 5-year average, we can see downward trends moving throughout really the last couple months of the year, but definitely October, November, and December, we're seeing downward trends, which this market has, of course, stayed consistent with that sharp downward trend from October to November. Trend rating -2, and like I mentioned previously with the other pair, a score of -2 means that this market is definitely trending downwards, and we can take a look. It really has been trending down. A little bit of consolidation here from October 19th to October 31st, Halloween, but ever since October 31st, that is a sharp drop off in just 1 week's time. In just a week's time, that is a pretty big move to the downside. And then lastly, GDP growth, inflation, unemployment, and interest rates, of course, all have scores of -1, and we can take a look at those numbers right over here. Again, we've already mentioned all of these numbers for the New Zealand dollar in our previous pair, so I'll just go over the pound. Pound GDP growth 0.2%, inflation 10.1%, which is nearing, I believe, a 40-year high. It's either at a 40-year high or nearing a 40-year high for pound inflation at 10.1%, pound unemployment 3.5%, and interest rates 3%. All right, so that was a quick look into our EdgeFinder. Remember, if you want it for yourself, use code A1YT down in the description for 40% off. We have so much information here, our score chart summary, market heat map, economic news, so that you can stay up to date with every news event featuring every currency pair, our COT data or smart money tracker, our brand new Fed tracker is a brand new feature that we just introduced, I think 2 weeks ago now. Retail sentiment, price forecast, and of course, fundamental analysis. We have charts for all of these categories right here. All of our major and minor currency pairs, as well as indices and commodities listed. Now we're going to check out some analysis from today's live stream featuring TraderNick.
The dollar yen. I'll show you guys one more trade I'm in just to show you. So I have NZD CHF. Gave back a little bit of my profit here today, or at least what was floating in it. We were up at one point about maybe $400 on this trade. Still waiting for this thing to really try and make a decision, but we've come back and retested my entry point. So I picked it up long. Wait a second. Why is my entry? Where's my entry candle here? Oh, it's way back here. Sorry, I missed that. I entered on this thing on a pullback here, and it's held this level pretty well. We did go underneath it, but we managed to narrowly miss my stop loss. My stop loss was under the lows here. So let me show you this. So stop loss was under the lows here, didn't get hit, waited on it, and it went into profit. Now it's back to break even, and I continue to just wait on this thing to see if we and if we can break out the highs. I'll look to trail my stops into profit. Just being patient with this one. I like the slow uptrend, and I'm willing to just wait on it. I'm not in a rush with NZD CHF, but I do like it long. And there you go. So yeah, that's if you're having any withdrawal issues with a brokerage, also peers, I just want to say this. If you're having any withdrawal issues, it's definitely not the brokerage itself. If they're regulated with ASIC, which is what ACAP is, they're third party. So they're not messing with your money. But I will say a lot of times people have issues withdrawing because they haven't provided like details that a regulated entity needs you to provide them in order to comply with regulation. That's a lot of mouthful, but just understand, like, for example, if you're running a legit business, you can't just pay out money to random people. You have to accept the documents that person has, the KYC stuff, know your customer. They have to have that stuff in order to pay out certain people their withdrawals. And sometimes that's why people are like, hey, they're not giving me my money. Well, no, they're just needing something from you in order to comply. So a lot of words there, but just understand if somebody has the stamp of ASIC on it, or the FCA or the SEC, if they have big regulated bodies overseeing what they're doing, you're in a good spot. At least that's from my experience and everything I've ever seen. You want to be trading with something that has, a stamp of approval. So NZD CHF, again, holding that one long, continue to be on that one. This is how I take my own trades. So we'll just walk through it together, see if there's anything that I'm looking to trade today. So we'll start out by, we'll look at some of the strong sells. So we have Pound New Zealand, Aussie New Zealand, Euro New Zealand. Very interesting that the New Zealand dollar is basically is perceived as bullish right now from the EdgeFinder. Let's break this down. Let's go look at, how about Euro New Zealand? So we'll look at Euro New Zealand here and see if there's an opportunity to trade it here today. So Euro New Zealand, we're pulling up the detailed chart on just Euro New Zealand. So within the EdgeFinder, you can pull up any asset that you want and get a breakdown on it, all the different metrics that we pay attention to, smart money tracking, retail sentiment, unemployment numbers, interest rate numbers, inflation. It takes all of those numbers into account and punches out a bias for you. So you have a sell bias here right now on Euro NZD. And let's go look at this one. So first of all, where we're getting the score, -5, it's taking all these different categories and it's giving us a summary. So COT data pointing towards more of a bullish bias on the euro. So that's a little bit of a red flag, right? Though a strong increase in the interest for New Zealand dollars right now. Very interesting. So futures contracts rising on the bullish side for NZD. So we'll have to watch that each week to see if there's an update. We get COT data once a week from Smart Money, from tracking non-commercial positions. So we'll have to watch that. We take a look at retail sentiment. The crowd is still short this one. So that one's a little bit of a red flag also for me. So if I was to be sell biased, I need to see this thing probably flip the other direction. Though we have a strong downward trend and fundamentals heavily favor the NZD over the euro. So, we take a look at GDP growth. So if we're looking at the comparison, remember, when we're trading currencies, many people don't piece this together. When you're trading currency pairs, think of it as like you're watching a sports game. You're saying, I think team A will win or team B will win. That's where we diagnose with these two currencies. We try and get like a view of like economically, which one is doing better. Well, let's look. Europe, New Zealand. Okay. If we take a look at GDP growth, Europe has in its most recent reporting a 0.2% increase in GDP. New Zealand has a solid 1.7%. So clearly that's a bullish bias for New Zealand, right? So in that category, we get a -1, meaning sell euro, buy NZD. Okay. So stay with me here. Let's take a look at next inflation. Inflation in the euro area is 10.7% with a rise recently of 0.8%. That is a red flag big time for the euro. Why I'm not super bullish on it. Fundamentally, that's really alarming. 10.7%, you compare that to New Zealand. Yes, still a high number, 7.2%, but it's recently declined. And again, this is a game of comparison. We're comparing two currencies, okay? So that one also tells us New Zealand dollar is the more favorable economic figure. Okay, unemployment, higher unemployment in Europe, lower unemployment in New Zealand. Very easy, right? your New Zealand is in the better side of that. And finally, interest rates. Interest rates higher in New Zealand, 3.5%, with a 0.5% raise recently compared to Europe's 2%. Okay, so we take all these things into account. We get a -5. Let's go look and see what Euro New Zealand is looking like on a technical chart basis. So that's what we do. That's how we find trades using the EdgeFinder. We go through and we say, okay, what is all these different metrics telling us about this pair? Is it bullish? Is it bearish? If you get no reading, if you're neutral, for me, there's no trade, right? There's nothing I can do. But if I get enough of a solid reading one way, like a sell bias, like we just saw, that could give me enough reasoning to look for sell trades on the technical basis. Many traders miss this. They just skip fundamentals, they skip sentiment, they skip, watching what smart money traders are doing, and they just try and trade chart patterns. And that's cool. But for me, I was only ever really able to get consistently profitable when I took into account the full picture. I understood a little bit more of the fundamentals and did the hard work. The technical side is much easier, in my opinion, and I think in most traders' opinion, than the technicals. Fundamentals are harder than technicals, in my opinion. Do you guys agree or disagree with me on that? I'd be curious to see. Do you think, we'll do it in the chat really quick, write in the chat, do you think technicals are harder or fundamentals are harder? Would you agree with me that you think fundamentals are harder, or do you think technicals are harder? I'm curious. Technicals are not easy either. Nothing is easy, right? This is trading. Trading is hard, but I think fundamentals are where more people struggle. So yeah. Now, actually, you know what I like about this? This actually has a pretty good chart pattern overall. I like this downward structure, right? So now we're onto the technical side of a trade. And this is how we set up a trade start to finish. We look for these lower highs, right? Now that's looking healthy. And in fact, we're pulling back. This could be an opportunity to look for sells. So we start marking up our resistance zones. So this part, I think most traders get. Most traders are I think it's maybe a little bit of a controversial subject. But I think most traders can understand technicals pretty easily. Technicals are lines and zones. It's, to me, if you get overcomplicated with it, I think you miss the point. Technicals are meant to be simple because everybody's supposed to see the same thing. Now we look at Euro New Zealand and we say, okay, we have a nice bias to the downside. I like this 1.69 level. I like the 1.695 level. Both of those would be areas where I could say, I'll take a stab at it. I'm not going all in on a trade. I'll take a small little stab in these areas to see if I can catch the trade that I'm looking for. Okay. So that's how I'm going to set up a trade. So I actually like Euro New Zealand today. I would be interested in potentially taking a sell in that 1.69 area and 1.695 level. So I hope that was helpful to you. Okay. So I just want to read the chat here. Yeah, fundamentals make more sense to you. Fundamentals are not easy. I'm currently struggling a bit. Yeah, fundamentals are a bit more difficult than technicals. Fundamentals are harder. See, fundamentals took me so much longer to study and to actually start sort of understanding the full picture. It took me several months. Technical strategies, I feel like, okay, so together today, I feel like we could pick up a technical strategy. If we all looked at a set of rules for a technical strategy, we could pick it up within an hour. But fundamentals, I would have to spend, or I did spend months. And I'm still learning. There's always more to learn with technicals and fundamentals, but I think fundamentals just are much more advanced in terms of knowledge. But that really is, you guys. That's why our team has been working so hard in the EdgeFinder. This is a tool that sort of takes fundamentals from the heavens of unattainability, super difficult, super complex, and it attempts to break it down for a simple scan that allows traders to say, okay, well, let me break this down and explain it to me. I can read through the understanding at any point for any chart that I want. If you're sitting there and you're saying, well, what does the pound USD look like fundamentally? I'm just lost. Click on it, go down to this scanner output summary and read it. Okay. That might really help you. If you guys don't have the EdgeFinder, we are currently doing our Black Friday sale. It was mentioned at the beginning of the stream. There's a link and a promo code that is in the description right now of where you're watching. If you click that, you can get the EdgeFinder for a discount.
Make sure you guys check out the links in the description if you need broker recommendations, access to our free Discord, or want to chat with us on Telegram. If you're interested in our trading software, the EdgeFinder, you can find that in the description as well. Thanks for watching.